Welcome back, everybody, to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. You can also follow us on YouTube. Got some great video content. Our YouTube handle is at LA Rams Up. You can follow us on Instagram as well. I'm your host, Mark. Let's get to it. Welcome back, Ram fans. This is episode 186 of Rams Up. Now, if you caught episode 185, you caught the first half of my roundtable with Paul Walia and Tom Courts. That's the annual thing we do post-draft. Took a close look at the Rams' 14 draft picks, discussed a lot of other stuff. This episode, I have the second half of that. And in this part of the discussion, we get into the undrafted free agents, remaining holes on this roster, where the Rams go from here, strategy-wise and player-wise. Lots of good stuff, so that'll come up here in a moment. And if you missed the first half of that roundtable, go back and check it out. Episode 185, we dropped that early Monday morning. Now, what do we have coming up after this episode? We'll take a close look at the schedule set to be released. Well, it might be out already by the time you hear this, coming out Thursday night. I may do a YouTube video on that or save it for the next drop. I also have a very special episode coming up. I recorded it quite a while ago, waiting for the right time to drop it. It's a history lesson about the 1970 Los Angeles Rams, one of the greatest decades of NFL football. Also one of the most frustrating and heartbreaking. I have a good bit on that to share with you younger fans. A lot of information you are probably unaware of about this great franchise. And for you older fans, maybe bring back some good memories, but it's probably going to bring back some bad memories too, so be forewarned. Before we get into that second half of the roundtable with Paul and Tom, a few things I wanted to share. I took a look at the Rams roster according to Spot Track. The Rams have 72 players under contract. That's not counting the 14 rookies they drafted because they are technically not under contract yet. So that's 86 players. How does that break out? They have 11 wide receivers, and that's including Braxton Burmeister out of San Diego State, by the way. They have 5 tight ends, includes an undrafted free agent by the name of Christian Sims. 15 offensive linemen. That includes the real recent signing of the center Mike McAllister out of Youngstown State. 4 quarterbacks, including Brett Ripien. 5 running backs, and that's one position. I suspect they'll add another one. 4 special teamers. That's a long snapper, 2 kickers, and a punter. And a punter, by the way, that can kick off. Now, when it gets to the defense, it gets a little more complicated how they're labeling these players. They only have 2 players listed as outside linebackers. That's Keir Thomas and Nick Hampton. Worth mentioning, they don't label any players as edge, including Michael Hoyt, who is still listed as a defensive tackle, by the way. And they have 6 players labeled as defensive ends, and that's including Byron Young and Ochuan Mathis. 8 defensive tackles, and that includes Mr. Irrelevant Deshaun Johnson, and 8 linebackers, only 2 of which are listed as inside linebackers, Jake Hummel and Ernest Jones. So listing them as defensive ends, outside linebackers adds a little bit of clarity about how the Rams see their roles shaking out, perhaps. Cornerbacks, 9, safeties, 9, including only 1 listed specifically as a free safety. That would be Jordan Fuller. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, probably just an intern filling this stuff out. So what's the breakout? 39 players on offense, 4 special teamers, and 42 on defense. And I think they're going to add a running back. The rest of this, who knows? I saw a little bit on Twitter, only 3 teams travel more miles than the Rams this upcoming season. That would be the Seahawks, the 49ers, and then the Dolphins, followed by the Rams and then the Chargers. And this is pretty much a recurring theme. The teams on the left and right coast generally travel the most, especially the teams on the west coast. That's just the way it shakes out year after year, with a few exceptions. I also saw where the Rams were rated with the worst edge rusher group in the league. And you know what? I can kind of understand that. The Rams definitely have some potential with these most recent draft picks, but they got to prove it. So I'm not really going to push back on having the worst rated edge rushing group, but hopefully that'll change soon enough. Next up, the second half of our roundtable with Tom and Paul coming up in a second. Episode 185 was the first half of the post-draft roundtable with Paul and Tom. Let's pick it up right here with the second half of that discussion, talking undrafted free agents, holes on this roster, and whatever else we felt like talking about. I had originally told you guys to identify 3 undrafted free agents that'll make this team. That's probably a bad way of putting it because all of these guys could make this roster. There are so many openings. So I'm going to give you 3 guys that I think are going to most likely be impact players, not only make the roster, but actually contribute on a regular basis. And I'll throw 3 names out there for you. One is linebacker DeAndre Square out of Kentucky. And it's primarily because there's some, I think there's opportunities there for at linebacker. We still have some holes there after Ernest Jones, I think. I'm not going to give you any cornerbacks because there's obviously going to be some undrafted free agent cornerbacks that make this roster and contribute. I'm just not sure which one. I identified Florida A&M wide receiver Xavier Smith as a guy that could make the team as a specialist, punt returner, kick returner. But on this team, I think they have guys that could probably fill that void. But if they wanted to identify someone that could really impact games, Xavier Smith might be the guy. And the third guy I identified is the safety out of Memphis, Quindell Johnson. He's a guy that my research indicates he was draftable. It was expected to go as early as the 5th round. And I think there's opportunities in that safety group as well. We could add another safety out of this group of undrafted free agents. So those are my 3: Quindell Johnson, Xavier Smith, DeAndre Square. Pretty tough job trying to pick names out of this group. But that's what I came up with. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, right, for the audience, is that we're talking about non-special team guys, right? Because we both obviously think that Alex Ward and Christopher Dunn will make it, which was part of the yeah. So
yeah,
we're
thanks
talking
for
about
clarifying that.
Yeah, 3 position players. So I agree with your Quindell Johnson. I think that's probably my number one. I think that it's because they're so thin at safety, and we have Jordan Fuller, Russ Yeast, Quentin Lake, Jason Taylor drafted, and that's it. And usually the safeties are guys that are going to contribute on special teams. And then we have some injury issues here with Fuller and Lake. And so, and Russ Yeast is I really like him as a player, but he's a little undersized. And so I think that Quindell Johnson is my number one. I'll say lock. I'll say it. He's a lock.
Okay.
Okay. I had to, yeah, you have to come out a little bit strong in these podcasts. And then my other 2 guys are, believe it or not, another safety was for all the same reasons that I just said. Rashad Torrance, I think another guy that like you had mentioned with Johnson was draftable, and for all the same reasons will do well. And then the other guy I think we had touched on was, or maybe we didn't. We touched on obviously Zach Evans at the running back, but the other Evans, Keon Evans, I think is also somebody that has a chance to make the roster at the running back position, just given the injury history to Cam Akers and Kyron Williams. And but I don't know if he'll make the 53, but he'll be on that UDFA squad, or I'm sorry, on the practice squad, and I believe we'll get some call-ups, and they'll give him some looks.
Okay, Paul, who you got?
All right, so my 3 will start off with I also had Tyon Evans. I just like his build. He runs hard. Definitely looks like a churner. Can get those first downs for you as a running back. Definitely coachable. Needs a lot of coaching, but definitely coachable. I think he holds a lot of promise for that sort of niche role that the Rams are looking for at running back. So I have him at the 1. I did text Tom when we were looking at UDFAs, and I had also Rashad Torrance. Rashad Torrance, I think, is going to make the squad. I like what he did at Florida. He's got the explosiveness. He's got the instincts. I think he'll make the squad. I think he has the opportunity. I think he will definitely fit for what the Rams are looking for. He's a playmaker, and I think he has the best in terms of physical attributes. When you take a look at all their players, I think he has the best. And then the third player, I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to go with Jordan Jones, a corner from Rhode Island. Rams to the Rams. I like what they wrote about him. I did get a chance to look at I could only find a couple of clips on him, but I did like what I see. He looked like a fluid player, but the 3 scouting reports used the same word, ball hawking corner. I like that. I like that term when you describe a player, and I like his physical attributes, his measurables. I'm going to go with Jordan Jones as a surprise. And I know I'm only supposed to name 3, but I got one player that's going to be, I think, might be a nice, pleasant surprise for us, and that's that inside linebacker from Incarnate Word, Aniel Abeki. I like this kid. I really do. I like what they wrote about him. I love his intangibles. 6 feet 240. I will say this. I was really excited about the possibility of the Rams signing Ivan Pace as a UDFA, but he got signed like almost immediately. He would have been a great fit next to Ernest Jones, but I think this kid, definitely keep an eye out for this kid. He might make that spot as a 2-down linebacker. He hustles. He works hard, very unselfish, and the kid likes to hit. So everything you need an inside linebacker right next to Ernest Jones.
Yeah, and he set the school record, 130 tackles last season, I think. And a note on Quentin Johnson, I'm probably going to get the numbers wrong, but I think most of these undrafted free agents get, $10,000, $15,000 signing bonuses, somewhere in that range. And Quentin Johnson, the Rams had him on the phone and offered him, I believe it was $50,000 to get him in camp. So they obviously wanted him real bad.
You know what his scouting report was? 2 words: tackling machine.
Oh, you're talking about the Incarnate Word guy or
Quentin Johnson.
Quentin Johnson.
That was his scouting report. Tackling machine.
But he's the same guy. Oh, it's Jason Taylor is the one that had to clean up his tackling. Quentin Johnson, not so much. Okay, gotcha.
That's
so let me,
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is. Let me run through position by position how I feel about the Rams real quickly, and then we'll discuss quarterback. I think we're set. Matthew Stafford backed up by Stetson Bennett. Ripien signed. I'm square with our quarterback situation. Running back, I feel really good about it, especially if Tyon Evans makes the team, bumps Ronnie Rivers off the squad perhaps. Wide receiver, I would have liked to see them add a receiver earlier, and I know both of you disagreed with me. You guys are right on that call as far as the direction the Rams went. As long as Cooper Kupp stays healthy, I think we're fine at wide receiver. Tight end, we're going to learn a lot about the direction of this group after June 1st, if Tyler Higbee is retained or not. But I'm comfortable with our tight end situation, with or without Tyler Higbee. We have a lot to learn about these guys, but it's kind of exciting. Offensive line, I feel like if Joseph Noteboom steps up and holds up, this could be a really good offensive line and very deep. No really concerns there. Of course, we're holding out that, we're assuming that Steve Avila is as good as advertised. And if that's the case, I feel pretty good about our offensive line. Defensive line, a little bit undersized. We need Bobby Brown to step up and a couple of other guys. Laurel Murchison, Ernest Brown IV. Remember that guy? Whatever happened to him? Marquise Copeland, Jonah Williams, some no names there, but kind of like our wide receiver group. If Cooper Kupp stays healthy, wide receivers are fine. If Aaron Donald stays healthy, may not be as good as last year, but there's some upside with our defensive line. We'll be okay. Uh, Edge rushers, hey, who knows? We have to roll with what we have. We've added 3 guys, and let's just cross our fingers. Could we add a veteran there? That's probably one position we could. There's some guys out there. Linebacker, I never really give a lot of thought to linebacker, for better or worse. Ernest Jones is the man right now. There's a lot of times we only have one linebacker out there, right? So we have to hope some of these guys step up and can back him up at least. And then cornerback, we've talked about that. I'm still concerned. We should all still be concerned, and just hope the Rams know what they're doing at that position. I think they really neglected the cornerback situation, and that might be our weakest unit. And with the guys we added at safety, with the young guys we already had, I'm okay with our safety group. That, in a nutshell, is how I feel about each of these position groups. Special teams, I left out, and that's another group, kind of like the edge rushers. Hey, we'll just have to kick back and watch and see how they perform and hope for the best. So that was a lot to throw out there. You want to go on a roll, Tom? How you feel about this team? Where the holes are? Where we need to go moving forward? Any free agent signings that we might look forward to?
Yeah, I'll just stick with the holes because I agree with you on the majority of it in terms of where we're solid. There's a lot of competition. A lot of the offensive line and things aren't locked in, but there's a lot of good players there. So the rooms that I'm most concerned with is cornerback first and foremost, by far. It's not even close. They needed to draft some more guys. We got one guy, small. He's another Jacoby Durant, essentially. Both slot guys theoretically, and just potentially don't have the size to be on an island outside. Are we going to rely on Kendrick? Is he our guy? And we better be able to get a pass rush. Our edge room is one of the 3 also I'm concerned with. So I'm not sure we're going to get the pass rush that we need to get to keep Darian Kendrick safe out there on the edge. On the cornerback, because like we saw last year, if he's going to get beat with just on pure speed if the quarterback has too much time. So really concerned about the cornerback position. We basically have 3 guys that at this point that could theoretically play, right? Durant, Kendrick, who's a question mark, and Tomlinson, who's a draft pick. So really concerned about that. I think they will add at some when they're at the end of the day they'll add a outside corner that can come back in, and I believe Troy Hill's still available, believe it or not. So they might just decide to bring him back. Well, after they have a look at some of these guys. Otherwise, really quickly, inside linebacker. I don't think Ernest Jones is obviously the dot and back there on the defense. But I don't know if Hummel will probably get the shot if Hummel or Roseboom can actually start. They do most of the time have 2 guys on the field at inside linebacker, and so they're going to need another one. And I don't feel like I don't know if either of those guys are ready. So that's a question mark where they might bring somebody in. That's a pretty easy one to fill with a free agent. And then the last one we talked about was edge, needing some help out there. A lot of youth with Hoyt and obviously we talked about Byron Young and Daniel Hardy. He really hasn't played. Keir Thomas looked okay. You draft Hampton, Mathis. It's going to be interesting to see.
So you got 3 units on defense you're most concerned about, essentially cornerback, edge, and inside linebacker, which makes perfect sense. Totally agree. How about you, Paul? What are you worried about at this point?
Well, my favorite position is running back, and I just want to shout out Izzy wound up with the New York Jets, the kid from Pitt that we talked about.
Right.
Can't get any more perfect than that. And Tom Charbonnet wound up with Seattle.
Yeah, I know. Can't believe it.
you know. But Charbonnet went exactly as slotted. I think he went at 57. So it was really
Yeah.
interesting. But so running back, I mean, I guess we got Akers. We're going to see what this kid Williams can do. Hopefully he can stay healthy. We have Evans, and hopefully the kid from Louisville makes the roster. So it's an unproven scenario there, but this is, it is what it is at this point. So if you stick to the trend that the first year players watch and learn, we're going to have a lot of depth. So that's why I said I think they're building the roster from the bottom up. And when the Rams were, and you look at that elite year that we had, that's what the roster looked like, right? The young players on the bottom. They brought in some key players to round out the skill positions. So if you start from the top, wide receiver, I'm extremely nervous about, right? Cooper Kupp's coming off an injury. Let's hope he's at full speed. Van Jefferson, I like the fact that he committed to the weight room last year, but he's also got to stay healthy, right? He's got to produce. Puka Nacua, I think, could contribute right away. Let's see if he gets reps. So, the Sco-Man, the Sco-Man proved that he deserves a little bit of playing time too. So still an unproven commodity at wide receiver. So I do have a little bit of agita there. I think tight end, I think Higbee has to go. I think they can save some money there. I like going with the youth movement at tight end. And it might convince McVay to call their numbers a little bit more. These players got some upside. Holy cow. Hopkins and now this kid Allen. Oh, wow. I love it. They're like basketball players in cleats. I love it. So
Did you purposely omit Tutu Atwell when you discussed wide receivers?
Tutu Atwell, I think at some point, it's in the NFL, it's put up or shut up, right? And I really hope this kid can stay healthy and we can really see what he can do. Look, all these players deserve a chance, right? So look, he also committed to the weight room. He put on some weight. Let's see what can happen. He could bring some sizzle to the return game. At this point, every spot is open. Competition is a great thing in training camp, right? The cream rises to the top. And let's hope that Tutu can contribute. I think they're going to bring in another wide receiver. I think they're going to.
Do you think McCutcheon has a shot at participating?
I would love to see McCutcheon get some reps. Look at that size. That's the thing. You don't know what you have until you put it out on the field.
Right.
You gotta let the kids play. So if there's any upside to what's been going on with the house cleaning, is that the young kids are going to play. So let's see what we have.
And it's going to be
the wide receiver. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, that's right. Go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, in terms of the wide receivers, I think when we talk about the way this roster's, looking for this year, we have to, obviously we have 1 year in front of us, and you can't play this year, next year, but the way that they're clearly this year is to set up next year, 2024. And so when you look at the wide receiver room, Van Jefferson is the one guy who's going to be a free agent after this season. So, and obviously if Kupp's the one, then if you're the wide receiver coach, or you're the offensive coordinator, or you're McVay, you're saying, okay, who's going to be our number 2 next year? And that's what they're looking for. So I think McCutcheon's going to get a lot of looks. And if they can't find a number 2 out of this group, then that's going to be something they really target next year, either through the draft or through a stud free agent. But that's the way I'm looking at the wide receiver room. So I think this is a big audition year. They're going to let McCutcheon play. We're going to see certainly Puka. We're going to see Austin Trammell in the slot. We're going to see a lot of guys and continue to see Skoranek and so forth. So, and then, let Jefferson go, or, let Jefferson play, but mix in other guys. And then if Jefferson plays well, then you get a nice comp pick for him if he signs in the, $10 million range next year or something like that.
Yeah. And this is what I was going to say is this is an opportunity for Sean McVay to really prove that he is a great coach, to take this team from 5-12 with this giant infusion of new players, young players, a high turnover on the coaching staff as well, a lot of young coaches. And I think he's excited about that. And it's a big challenge for him. And if he can't get this turned around, he's going to take a ding as far as his legacy as, boy wonder coach. So he's going to be highly motivated to get this thing turned around real quickly.
The Ty Hill example, I think, is really a perfect example for what's going to happen now moving forward. Look how they got Ty Hill. Talk about under the radar. What a great acquisition, right? Sort of like that Austin Corbett acquisition from Cleveland, also. Sort of like under the radar, low cost. Let's see what we got for a year. Build up, provide some leadership, whatever it may be. So I think you're going to see those little types of supplemental acquisitions. Nothing to break the bank, but you can't roll into the season with a roster of only undrafted free agents. It's not going to
Right.
work. You need to have some contributions, particularly. So on offense, I think the O line. I think we're going to be okay. I think we have a lot of depth now in the O line. I think training camp's going to be that's a position where it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think in the future, Avila is going to be the center of the future, if not the guard of the future. Whether or not he plays right away, I don't know. I think he's going to get every chance to win that left guard position. Defense, I will say this: when it's all said and done, and Aaron Donald retires, and regardless of how many, what happens, I think when the Rams look back at this as an organization, they're going to kick themselves that how many years they went and didn't put a superstar next to Aaron Donald, because it would have probably translated to at least one additional Super Bowl, right? And once again, they're going into the season, and it's no surprise when we won the Super Bowl, who was playing next to him? Von Miller, right? So all the other pretenders to the throne that were on the weak side linebacker position, right? The one year when we had a legitimate dynamic superstar playing next to him, look how it turned out. And I think as an organization, when they look back at that, they had the best defensive player in the league, and how many years they went without supplementing him. And they're perilously close to doing it again. And as a Ram fan, and this is a Ram forum, I can say that publicly to the United States and beyond, all the Ramily, that is a trend that, they really have to look at that. And that's on them. That's on them as an organization.
There was a conversation I heard about between Les Snead, Sean McVay, and Aaron Donald. If I could paraphrase it for you, it was something like, I think they were sharing with Aaron Donald what their draft strategy was going to be, and he said, just draft people that care. And I think they did that, but like you say, not going to be any superstars on this defense line. Hey, Tom, you're the expert on this panel, anyways, as far as contracts and money goes. June 1st. Well, they're already going to have to. Well, let me ask you this: do they have enough money to sign all these rookies?
They don't. They have to. They have to either clear it through the June 1st with Higbee's the only one that they can really do that with, or that they can easily do some restructure and kick some money down the road with Cup or a few other guys. So it's one of their big four. But there's no real threat there. But though just for the way a lot of people think, oh, if you cut somebody after June 1st, you save all this money. It's kicking the can down the road. It's just a way for teams to kick the can down the road in terms of when they cut somebody, when they take that cap hit. And so they'll still take the cap hit next year with Higbee if they do it, or they might not even designate him on June 1st and just take it all this year. So we'll see.
So do you think, given that their only path to signing free agents, period, is through restructuring, really? And do you think?
Those guys aren't going to be very expensive. I mean, we're not talking about anybody significant at all. We're talking about, some $1.5 million, $2 million free agents if they have to. I think they're going to try and roll with this group, but if there's a position that they are just have this massive void at in the cornerback or something like that, which is the one that I can see happening, or inside linebacker, these guys turn out to be Troy Reader incarnated or something like that, then they're just like, well, we don't have anybody on a roster. We got to bring somebody in that can play this position. Otherwise, the other 10 guys out there are being left exposed. So I think it's a last resort. There's always plenty of guys that can come in and play okay.
Right.
And that's what they're going to. They're not going to try and create a difference maker, and they just don't have enough money. They don't have enough money to, and their whole strategy isn't really financially driven as much as it is. We want to leave roster spots open for playtime, open for all these youngsters to have a chance to show what they can do.
And the flexibility to do the big bang theory next year, right?
Yeah, next year's and to your point, they're going to do a big bang. There's nobody on this roster, that's a big bang guy on the defensive line or on edge that are going to have any chance of being what you talked about, Paul, in terms of a real strong difference maker. And the only guys that we're losing out of this entire crew next year is about 17 guys or something like that, including or 16 guys if you don't count Matthew Jester is there one defensive line or edge on the UDFA, which is actually pretty amazing that there's only one UDFA between those two positions. But anyway, of the 16 guys, we're only losing 2 next year, and it's like Copeland and Murchison or something like that, which aren't exact. So and the guys that are left aren't going to be those superstars. So that's clearly a position that they're going to really load up on with their sort of 80 million projected that they'll have in cap space next year.
So this year, if they were going to sign any free agents, it might be low cost, agreed. Maybe a big defensive tackle, a cornerback, and an inside linebacker, just to supplement what they have.
A 1-year guy, or cheap 1-year guy.
I give it 2 preseason games, and Robert Rochelle will be gone. 2 preseason games. I give it 2, and then reality will set in, and he will be gone.
Yeah, he's actually did contribute pretty well on special teams. So he's a strong special teams player. So I don't think he'll be gone. I just, if he was in the rotation in any way, shape, or form of the conversation for cornerback, I agree. And then Sean Jolly, which is an interesting. Speaking of cornerbacks, they brought him in last year and then they parked him. He was one of the players that was on the he was on the 53, but on the inactive list. Game day inactive list most times. Even when he was active, he didn't play on special teams. But for some reason, they parked him. And that Demoff has talked about this parking guys. And McCutcheon was a park job last year. The prior year, it was who was the edge? Was it
Chris Garrett?
Yeah, Chris Garrett was a park job the prior year. So they have these guys that are park jobs, and it's weird that Jolly was. So they must think something of him. But hopefully he can play.
He did play well, though. He definitely brought a spark. He definitely played with moxie. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and he didn't play very much, but when he did, he looked okay.
Probably worth mentioning, given what we've been talking about, the 2 undrafted free agents. One is a pretty big cornerback, another McCutcheon, Cameron McCutcheon out of Western Carolina. And then there was another one here, the guy out of Arizona State, Tamarcus Davis, 5'11", 180.
Yeah.
McCutcheon I have at 6'2", 200. So maybe one of them have a shot at making this roster as well.
Maybe short, athletic, physical cornerbacks. Maybe it's not such a bad thing. I don't know.
I think the corner scenario trend where they're going to smaller corners has to be because a lot of the defenses want the ability to match up. So no matter where you are on the field, whether you got to jump down into the slot or go to that's the issue. A lot of teams are using that, putting their best receiver at the slot, right? And that's really what they're trying to exploit, is that the inability of the defense to have that third defensive back that can cover. Right. And Troy Aikman used to say it all the time when he was an announcer. He said, offense is simple. Is my slot receiver better than your third defensive back? Troy Aikman used to say that all the time. And it makes a lot of sense. So I think that's where you're seeing a lot of these corners that can play the perimeter, but also jump down and play the slot. And you have safeties that are now being able to do that they can play safety, come into the box, and jump down and cover the slot receiver. So I think that's a trend. So I think you're definitely going to see that. And because the smaller corners are so plentiful, right, I think that's the reason you're seeing so many of them.
Any final thoughts on this draft and where the Rams are going, I think we're kind of in agreement on most of this, and I think it's just going to be an exciting time. It's just going to be a really interesting training camp and preseason, and can't wait to see it get started. It's going to be a different year, though. It's going to be maybe a slightly painful at times. Probably not as painful as last year. I'm hoping no, but can't wait to see it get started.
I think it's exciting. Listen, look, as a Ram fan, I would love to be able to say, we're going in, we're locked and loaded. But you know, Tom will agree with me. Sometimes you got to take a step back to go forward, right? And that's okay as long as you do it in a reasonable fashion, a well thought out fashion. So, I think your point is spot on. I think it's going to be exciting. Let's watch the training camp battles. Let's see how it pans out, and let's watch the team. That's what they're going to be doing. Who gets released? Like I said, the Kai Hill is a perfect example. Austin Corbett in the past was a perfect example. And then they're going to supplement when they need to down the road. They're going to bring in those players that fit the system and when they need to make their run. So,
Any final thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, no, I just it's exciting because we've sort of alluded to that it's a tryout year. It's just really open it up, let these young guys. We haven't seen that from the Rams. It's been this very as part of Paul mentioned, get the rookies and let them sit a year or two, cut their teeth on special teams and develop and behind these players that are more experienced or veterans and so forth, because they really tried to, it really been in make a run in the Super Bowl window the last 6 seasons. And so, or 5 seasons, we'll say. And so it's just exciting to see all these guys. We're going to see these guys play. Like if this was a draft class, how many of these guys would actually get a chance to compete with all of those guys on the roster? They cut 13 guys that were free agents. They didn't bring them back, they didn't cut them. And then they cut a bunch of others. So it's, to me, that's what's exciting, is we're going to see virtually all of these guys have a chance to play. And I do have a prediction. I think that our if you include Higbee being the fifth, but if you include sort of Stafford and Donald and Cup and Havenstein, I do think those guys are going to sit some this year and let some of the other guys play in their place. It's not going to be load management like the NBA, but it's going to be nagging injury. He's questionable. Oh, he's going to sit out. And I mean, because the number one goal is none of those guys can get hurt. Like, there's no chance we're winning the Super Bowl this year. This team clearly plays for Super Bowls, so those guys cannot get hurt. Number one, and number two, we know they're great players, so rest them up for when we make our run in 2024 and whatever that means and looks like, and let some of these other guys play. Let's see Stetson Bennett play some real games at quarterback. We are going to see it, almost guaranteed. And it's not because Matthew Stafford gets, killed like he did last year. It's because he's going to have a nagging injury and he's going to sit out. And we're going to see Stetson Bennett lead this offense. I can't wait.
Yeah, it may be dependent on the schedule. If the schedule comes out such that the Rams can get out of the gate 3-1, maybe their strategy would change. But we'll have to see.
all right, Mark and Tom, outside of the Rams, who are your teams that ace the draft?
I haven't looked at it that closely. I thought the Lions. I didn't really like their top end of the draft. I just thought position-wise it was a little bit odd. I have to like the Seahawks draft, although I think people are getting or overreacting to how much impact that can have on a team year one. Those are probably my only comments. I thought it was kind of odd Green Bay taking 2 tight ends, I think, in their first 3 rounds. But hey, I've been on vacation. I haven't really looked at a lot of the other teams' drafts yet. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I did not. I got some nice, fun, friendly debates with, well, the Lions fans are very defensive about their draft. Um, and I don't think that they have, I don't like their, positional value at all. Like, if you're going to do it, and this is the right draft to do it in, But that's an entire sort of debate in and of itself. Taking linebackers and these kinds of things.
I'm going to go with, I know I'm biased because I think Tomlin's the greatest. Tomlinson's the greatest, right? Mike Tomlin, I think, is the greatest. So I'm going to go with the Steelers. I love what the Steelers did. Broderick Jones, Joey Porter, Keanu Benton, Darnell Washington, Nick Herbig, Corey Trice, Spencer Anderson. I just thought they got great value in every round. And enough sizzle to go along with the lunch bucket guys. So I like what they did. I like what the Steelers did, and I like what Philly did. Philly, once again, you got to love what they do. They did a great job. They got Jalen Carter. They got your guy, Mark, Nolan Smith, Tyler Steen, Sidney Brown, Kelly Rengo, Tanner McGee, and Moro Jomo. So
didn't they draft the Georgia defense? Is that what I heard?
Jalen Carter, yeah. Listen, the SEC is where it's at. You got to bring in the SEC players,
right? Right.
So
I saw the going off on a tangent here. So one of the guys posted their top 15 college football teams for next year, and there was surprisingly a shortage of SEC teams in the top 10 or so. And I think there were 4 Pac-12 teams, including Washington. I think he had it number 4.
Wow.
Real interesting, but it's early for that though. Hey guys, I think we've got enough here. Gone over almost an hour and a half. Good stuff. I really appreciate your time. We'll talk again. Maybe we'll get together in mid-June when things have fermented even more. We'll have a little bit more to talk about. How's that sound?
All right. Go Ram.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. And let's do it again real soon. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. Visit our website at ramsup.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.
Music courtesy of the YouTube audio library. Tracks featuring Bar Crawl by Track Tribe, Buckeye Bonzai by Vans in Japan, and Crimson Fly by Huma.